Hey, all, welcome to my channel. Oh, whoops, did not realize how to go to talk about. I don't see anyone just yet, so please give me a minute because I have to wait and see. So if someone's sending a chat, I won't see it, unfortunately. All right, anyways, I'm on. Um, what can I say? I mean, so far, the Mets look like a team to beat in 2025. How so? To the point of, let's be honest, signing Soto, we knew that was going to happen. If you weren't aware of it, I mean, come on, let's be honest, that was going to happen at that point. Um, so just taking a quick look at certain things as well too. Um, I mean, you have Soto. Yes, the Mets signed, also re-signed Manaea. I'm hoping that's a good pickup because, quite honestly, I'm a little worried about Manaea because the fact is like I'm hoping he could replicate what he did in 2024. It's a case of because the fact that he was tinkering with his pitches and added a new, new repertoire that he was able to, be that good of a pitcher. Was he dominant? No, by no means was he dominant. I'm hoping he can be dominant, but it's only time will tell. Basically, the question is he worth 3 years for $75 million? Again, we'll have to wait and see next year, basically, next season. Um, Now with the pitching, basically, it comes down to this. Basically, I mean, can the Mets land Burns? I think Corbin Burns would be that cornerstone that the Mets can work off of. Basically, Manaea is not a number one starter. Let's be honest, he's not a number one starter. Everyone still thinks Senga is that number one starter. I honestly doubt it. I don't know why. Everyone thinks that Senga is that good of a starter. Honestly, I think he's like your middle of the rotation, maybe the back of the rotation type of guy, but he's not a number one starter, not even a number two starter. Let's be honest, he's not a number two starter. Um, Sorry, I'm trying to figure out some other stuff. I mean, is Clay Holmes the right person? I don't know. He was originally a starter, then they moved him to the bullpen. The Mets are probably thinking of moving him back into a starter. Is that the right choice? I can't say, quite honestly, because I think Holmes is more of that middle reliever type of person more than anything else. He's not a starter. If he was able to regain his form, that's great, but I highly doubt that's going to be the case. Um, I don't know if this is a case where basically the Mets should try to go all out for Sasaki. Basically, I hate to say it, but like Sasaki is the best I think we'll have a shot of as basically being that cornerstone beside Burns. They need to get Burns. Corbin Burns has to be the Mets' main priority right now at this point. Everyone's gonna say Pete Alonso. Yeah, Pete Alonso would be great in that lineup, but you need pitching, and if you don't have pitching, it's not going to work. Manaea may or may not be good. Again, well, only time will tell. I'm hoping he does the exact same thing that what he did in 2024, but I have a feeling he might be a fluke, and he might revert to like what he was with the Giants, San Francisco Giants, which is like a 4 point to 5 point ERA pitcher. I'm hoping that's not the case, but only time will tell. Um, in regards to the fact that like they got Frankie Montas, I don't know. He's probably again another back of the rotation type of guy. David Peterson is looking to be more and more like your number three starter, middle of type rotation. And then of course you've got like Vassell, who I don't know if that's the right move. And the fact that they've signed free Chris Williams there, I don't know if he's coming or not. It's hard to say at that point. Um, I mean, quite honestly, let's let's look at it from this perspective. And the fact that the Mets signed Jared Young kind of like holds off at that point, because like let's be honest, I think now the Mets are in the driver's seat. Granted, the Mets, it's probably going to come down to the Mets, Giants, and Cubs as far as signing Pete Alonso, because Pete Alonso, everyone else, every team has gone out there and already gotten their players for first base. The fact that there was so much shifting going around, I think Pete Alonso waited too long. He should have signed with someone as quickly as possible, with the Mets for that matter. And I think these three teams are in the driver's seat. It's just a matter of who's willing to pay him the most. Because he's definitely, Boras is definitely going to try to eke out as much as he possibly can for Pete Alonso. The only thing is, I don't think the Mets are going to give him like a 5 to 7 year contract, maybe 4 at best. But there's no way they're going to give him 5 to, or even a 6 year contract. But to be quite honest, he's looking for that 6 to 7 year contract. Mets are not stupid. They're not going to sign him for 6 to 7 years for a guy, even though he's been consistently playing and has been very rarely injured. But quite honestly, he's due. Let's be honest, he's due. So I want to look at that. Now, with the aspect of with Sasaki, I don't know. I'm hoping Sasaki maybe might have that ego, because Yamamoto and both Yamamoto and of course Otani are there. There are already 2 Japanese players there. Would Sasaki want to play with the same team where he's probably going to be second fill or third fill for that matter? I don't know. As a pitcher, and granted, yeah, Buehler has gone to the Red Sox, so now LA's kind of looking. I mean, granted, they signed what's his face, Snelling. I think they're going to try to sign Sasaki as well too. But honestly, I don't see Sasaki going to the Cubs. Possibly the Red Sox. There's a strong possibility he'll go to the Red Sox. A strong possibility he could go to the Padres and Giants, but most likely it's going to be the Padres, Dodgers. It's probably going to be one of the East Coast or West Coast teams. It's either going to be the Dodgers, Padres, maybe the Giants, depending. New York Mets, New York Yankees, and Boston Red Sox. It's going to be one of those 5 to 6 teams. Can the Mets get Sasaki? I think they have a better shot at getting him over the Yankees. I mean, if Sasaki's about history and all that stuff and like tradition, then it's going to come down to the Yankees or Dodgers more than anything else. But I think we might be able to entice him to the point like we could probably post him as basically the starter. Question, because like everyone's saying, again, Senga being a number 1 starter or number 2 starter, again, Senga is not your front of the rotation type of pitcher. He's more of a middle to the back end rotation type of pitcher. And you're like, well, no, he's done the only reason he's done really well is because he was just like a fluke. He's not your phenom, basically. He's just a guy that no one has seen, and that's why he can be hit. Like, let's be honest, when he was playing in the playoffs, coming back from injury, I mean, honestly, he was hit, basically, from the Dodgers. The Dodgers took him out. So I think they can figure him out. To the point of, like, I think it's more so to the point of, like, the Mets have to sign Sasaki, do everything they can to get Sasaki. I know they tried to get Yamamoto, but it seems like Yamamoto was just playing the Mets so that he could go join the Dodgers. Sasaki could possibly use the Mets again to sign with the Red Sox or the Yankees. I don't know. Only time will tell. The only question comes down to this is if Sasaki doesn't join the Mets and if Corbin Burnes doesn't join the Mets. Now, that's the other thing, too. If Corbin Burnes were to sign with the Mets, which is looking unlikely, but if somehow, some way, Cohen was able to like pull out another rabbit out of his hat and sign Burnes, I think the Mets become a legitimate contender, because the fact is they've got the pitchers at that point. And whatever pitchers that they have left, like Montas or Holmes, most likely Holmes goes to the bullpen. Blackburn going to the bullpen at that point because he's not going to be 6 men. Montas can be the sixth man in the rotation at that point, because you're going to have Senga, Peterson, Manaea, and if you were to have Burnes, that's number 4. And then I think if they were to get Sasaki, that's your number 5 player, then, Montes would be number 6 guy. But anyways, it's hard to sell. Outside of that, I don't know what else to say. Oh, I just saw I just saw some chats going on. Okay, sorry about that. I didn't see your the chats. The chats don't show up here live per se. The Mets start dumpster diving. Beffer, you could say that they're dumpster diving, but in reality is like they were dumpster diving last year, and look what happened. I mean, honestly, Manaea was a dumpster dive. Same thing with Blackburn. I mean, honestly, half the team that they were, that they got off that they built was dumpster diving, and they did pretty decent. So, I mean, somehow, some way, Stearns has some kind of magic of like identifying players that he can use to like build up a playoff caliber team. Sasaki, I mean, it's one could only hope. Let's be honest. Soto was like iffy as well too, quite honestly, because like everyone thought Soto was using the Mets so that he because like the fact of the matter is, let's be honest, he was staying in Southern California, and I think was it not Anaheim. He was staying in Newport Beach at a hotel in Newport Beach. He was setting his base in Newport Beach, in one of the hotels there. If a guy is going to be setting up there and he's not playing and he wasn't going to be re-signing with the Yankees, he was definitely looking at either the Dodgers or even the Angels or possibly the San Francisco Giants. And he was probably everyone thought he was using the Mets, but somehow, some way, the Mets signed him. So honestly, I think it's a case where like same thing with Sasaki. I think possibly Cohen could get him if they can convince him. The only question is how they can convince him. I don't know because like what they tried to do with Yamamoto last year, that I think they learned from that mistake of what they did and probably could convince Sasaki to join the Mets if they could get him. Burns, you're right. Burns probably could be using the Mets to go to the San Francisco Giants, but in reality is like, look, if the Mets can convince him, I mean, yeah, the Giants do have money to spend as well as the Cubs. And specifically, I think, yeah, the Giants are pretty much the Mets' number one competitor in trying to sign Burns as well as Pete Alonso, and maybe even Sasaki for that matter. But yeah, I think Burns could most likely come to the Mets if Cohen offers him more money. The only thing is like, unless the Giants offer Burns a 7 to 10 year contract, the Mets will definitely. Well, that's the other aspect as well too. Which has hit me basically is Cohen and Stearns are guys that are not going to give pitchers long-term year contracts. Basically, at best 5 years. Like Soto having that 10-year contract or 15-year contract, that was more so because Soto was kind of a generational player. Burns is not your generational player. Sasaki, not your generational player. So the fact that Ohtani, I wish the Mets had made a play for Ohtani, but Ohtani won in that win and that World Series ring. So I think it's a case where like if Burns wants the money, he should go to the Mets. But if Burns wants the longevity with the money or that long-term contract, if he wants a long-term contract, not longevity, but the long-term contract, yeah, then it's basically the Giants or possibly the Cubs, because the Cubs could come in as well as the Angels. Let's not put the Angels out of there because the Angels can swoop in and do whatever it is. Can the Dodgers go in and sign him? It's possible, but reality is I doubt it because the thing is, Burns is not a guy that's going to defer his contract like the way Ohtani did. Basically, there's no way he's going to do that. So, will Burns join the Dodgers? No. Will Burns join the Giants? Possible. Again, it's possible because they do have the money. But the problem is like if Burns wants that ring, it's not going to be with the Giants. It's either going to be with the Dodgers, Yankees, Red Sox, Mets, Cleveland possibly as well too. But I doubt Cleveland's going to do anything about that. I honestly hate to say it, but like he probably has a better shot of getting a ring with Baltimore too, because Baltimore does have some decent prospects coming up as well too. Or Toronto. That's the other factor as well too. Like we can't take out Toronto because they got money to spend. They were in the hunt for Ohtani last year, hunt for Soto this year. If they want to build that money that they were going to use for Soto and Ohtani, they could use it for Burns and other players at this point as well too. I would not be surprised to see Toronto actually signing both Burns and Pete Alonso, even though they have a first baseman themselves basically. But it'll be interesting to see how that works out from that aspect. Now with Montas, yeah, he looked better with the Brewers. I think Stearns probably recognizes Montes's skills. I think he's gonna probably maybe thrive with the Mets. Maybe it's possible. I mean, like with Montes and Minea, they're your middle of the rotation type of guys. They probably could do a lot. The question is, can Minea replicate what he did this year? If he does, and if Montes does really well with the Mets, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Quite honestly, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Same as with Blackburn as well too. Honestly, I don't know what they can do with Blackburn because he was that 4.5 ERA pitcher for over 3 years with the A's. Is he a lifer of that nature? I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out with that as well too. Quite honestly. It'll be interesting to see if the Mets are done signing, or will they sign Corbin Burnes? Will they put it this way? Cohen's not unwilling to spend to win. I think he learned based on 2 years ago what not to do and not to overpay for. Basically, it's a matter of like what they can do at that point. The question is, do the Mets sign Alonso? But if they sign Alonso, will it be for the 4 years or will it be for the 6 years? I don't think the Mets are going to go beyond 4 years. But honestly, and I wouldn't, if I'm them, I wouldn't either, because let's be honest, 29, I mean, he'll be 33, 34. He doesn't seem like a guy that takes care of, well, he does seem like a guy that takes care of himself, but I think he's due definitely for some injuries. It's only a matter of time. If the Mets can sign Corbin Burnes, I mean, look, with Corbin Burnes, with Senga as like our third or fourth pitcher, David Peterson is your number 3 pitcher as well too. Manaea, maybe your number 2 pitcher, depending on Peterson. It depends how Peterson develops. And then the other aspect is like Joey Butto, basically. I keep forgetting about Joey Butto, but Butto himself, he could become another Johan Santana, building off of the building off the bullpen and then coming in slowly back easing into the starting rotation. He could be that pitcher, basically. I have a feeling that he's now got 1 year under his belt. He might slowly he might start off in the beginning of the year in the bullpen, but I think he's going to be slowly moved into the full rotation as a starting pitcher, and it'll be interesting to see how he does that as well, too. Yeah, you're right. I mean, honestly, let's be honest. Like, if the Mets don't score, it's a problem for them, basically. Like Peterson, I think it was the same thing with Peterson, same thing with Senga. I think Burnes can do something. I don't know if the bullpen is that terrible, to be honest, because let's be honest, if like you have some of these players, like if Clay Holmes, who they're thinking of making a starter, they could push him back into the bullpen. I think he could hold him off at that point. McGill, I think he's more of a middle reliever type of person. He's not your closer. Diaz, I don't know how that works out, but who sees what happens. That's a very good question who the Mets DH should be, because quite honestly, if they sign Pete Alonso, then I would say don't be surprised for Brett Baty to be brought back up, as like you got JD Martinez, but also seeing a little bit of Brett Baty as well too. I think it's mostly going to be JD Martinez and Brett Baty at this point, because Martinez definitely, JD basically brought a lot of his veteran leadership to the team when the Mets were initially sucking before Grimace came about as well too. He brought in that that sort of wisdom and imparted it to the players. So I was like, look, we're losing, so why not just have fun at this point? Screw it, and they just started having fun. They started winning, and again, these were a bunch of players outside of Lindor, of course, and Alonso. Pete McNeil, also, that's the other factor too, is depending what happens. If Acuna becomes your second baseman, or even for that matter, what's his face? Oh, I forgot the dude's name now. Crap. Why am I drawing a blank with his name? Acuna or Mauricio. Well, could be also a center field, depending what it is. But if they come in, McNeil becomes your DH at that point. Quite honestly, he becomes an overpriced DH. But let's see what happens at that point. I don't know. I think you might think that they're already loaded on the right, as right-handed hitters. But JD Martinez, quite honestly, again, veteran leadership. You need a veteran leadership, but that veteran leadership, I don't think they don't go that far. Quite honestly, like, yeah, you had Lindor. I'll put it this way. As I said earlier in the year as well, too, Lindor is the catalyst. He's the offense of the team. If he doesn't do anything offensively, the rest of the team flounders at that point. So it comes down to Lindor, quite honestly. He's definitely the leader of the team. He is the team. But now it's Soto in place. I think between these two, if one sucks and the other does really well, I think they do well. The question comes down to this is like, not question comes down to, but you saw what happened. When Lindor sucked and Alonso was doing well, the Mets were still losing. When Lindor was doing really well and Alonso was sucking, the Mets were winning. So it's a question of with Soto winning at that point, and it's infectious with the rest of the team. I think that rest of the lineup, I think they win at that point. Do I think Pete Alonso is worth that kind of money? I don't know. Yeah, he's a homegrown Mets, homegrown Met, but in reality is he's not the team. This is Lindor's team. Let's be honest. This is definitely Lindor's team right now. First and foremost, he is the captain of this team. It is not Pete Alonso. Anyone says otherwise is wrong, and I'll challenge him to it. Basically, showing him the numbers from the past as well, too. Quite honestly, because again, look at this season. This season alone shows otherwise. The dude was so into himself that he was not. I thought honestly in the beginning, Lindor was more about himself, and not about the team, and like he was just hitting for himself. But reality is like as he was hitting, he was basically becoming infectious with the rest of the line that they started hitting. When Alonso was hitting, no one cared because Alonso was hitting for himself. He was swinging for the fences even when there was a play on third base. He was going for the fences when he should have just hit a single or even a sac fly. He was unwilling to do that at that point. That's the sad part about it. This dude was like just trying to hit homers left and right so he could build off his resume and pad his resume so that he could get like that $400 million salary that he wanted for like maybe 10 years or something like that, whatever it may be. But in reality is he's not worth that kind of money, honestly. First basemen are a dime a dozen. If we lose Pete Alonso, we bring up Batty, and like Batty goes to first base. I mean, honestly, I think Batty can play first, and like I think he was just in a slump last year. He probably will come out of it, or to use Batty as trade bait as well too if we need to get someone. Again, even though you think that JD Martinez is not coming back, I have a feeling that they're going to try to keep him. I think they will try to keep him because like they need that veteran leadership. Yes, Lindor is that veteran as well too, but JD Martinez has that experience in the World Series, and he can apply that to the Mets and use them because like JD Martinez when he was with the Red Sox when they won those World Series, I mean he was pretty good. Where was I when I learned about the Soto signing? I was actually at home. I was actually literally working when I saw the bulletin come up. Actually, I was notified on my phone, and then friends were like messaging left and right. I was like, okay, this is great, but we're not done yet. Quite honestly, Soto, I've always said that, like, in the beginning of the year, the Mets have to sign Soto, even last year as well, too, when the Mets were not in the running, or they didn't make an attempt, basically. They did not make an attempt for Ohtani. I got pissed off because I would have loved to have seen Ohtani and Soto in the same lineup. But in any case, after Ohtani signed with the Dodgers, I was like, all right, look, the Mets have to do whatever they can to sign Soto. That's all it comes down to. If they lost Soto, yeah, I would have been royally pissed. But after what we did this year, Soto, I don't think brings them over to the top, but he keeps them in the hunt, in the playoff hunt. Now, like I said, it comes down to pitching. That's the biggest factor. If they can get pitchers, they win the World Series. If they have some serious pitchers, they win the World Series hands down. They beat the Dodgers easily at this point as well, too, if they could get some good pitching at that point. So that's what it comes down to. So was I crying? No, I didn't cry. Was I happy? Yeah. But was I over thrilled? No, because the Mets are not done. They need more. They need pitchers. When they signed Montas and when they signed Holmes, I'm like, this is not going to help out. What they needed, if they can get Sasaki, this is the big thing. If they can get Sasaki and Burns, I think that will definitely put them at the top to the point where like they become the team to beat at that point. I think they could do that. They get these two players, they become the team to beat. Outside of that, I've been kind of going over a little bit my time because like I usually try to leave it between 20 and 30 minutes. So I got another 7 minutes to talk about this. But reality is like actually wait, hold on. I'm trying to see something about the Mets a little bit. I mean, it would have been interesting to see if the Mets had signed Buehler, quite honestly, because I thought maybe the Mets could make a play for Buehler, but maybe they know something that we don't know, and that's why they just said, like, let him go. I don't know where. I don't want to say I don't know where the Mets should go with this, but when it comes to McNeil, as good of a player as he was, and as good as he was when the Mets were sucking, and he was there to keep the Mets in that aspect of being sort of not a contender, but more so at least in the hunt, but also keeping him competitive. I don't know what we do with him basically because he might just be either trade bait, quite honestly, or to the other thing is instead of trade bait, maybe he becomes your DH, depending on what happens. If the Mets don't sign Alonso, again, he's still probably because like you got Mauricio and you got even though Mauricio could be a center fielder as well too, but Mauricio and Acuna are both your second baseman. I have a feeling Acuna is going to be the second baseman of the Mets. Basically, if he can replicate what he, if he can be this somewhat similar to his brother with the Braves, I think Acuna might be your long-term second baseman. And then the question comes down to is your third base, which is Vientos. Vientos proved himself last year. This year. So Batty has to prove himself, and for the only way to do that is he's got to hit, and he could probably be your DH as well too if the Mets re-sign Alonso. If that's the case, either Batty or McNeil becomes trade bait at that point because you have too many players at that point. I'm like, you're not going to use you can't use Batty at that point, and he's still a decent prospect. It's just a matter of where you put him at that point. And McNeil, he becomes trade bait as well too. Quite honestly, I don't know who would want him, but maybe Seattle. Maybe Seattle will take one of them. So who knows? We'll see. But in any case, I'll have to leave it at that. It was good talking with you, Byfor. Love to see if we can discuss more about this, about the Mets down the line. But it'll be interesting to see, after New Year's, come January 14th, I believe, or 15th, we'll see what happens then. And I would love to go live then and talk at that point. No problem about the videos. With that, Happy New Year to you guys, and Happy New Year to you, Byfor, and hopefully see you guys down the line. And again, welcome all comments about this. With that, I'll leave it at that. Unfiltered, unedited, of course, always unrehearsed. Until next time.